This is suspected serial killer Kenneth McDuff in May, after your tips led to his capture in Kansas City, Missouri. McDuff was sentenced to die in the Texas electric chair for the 1966 slayings of 3 Fort Worth teenagers. But in 1972, the Supreme Court threw out the death penalty, so McDuff's sentence was reduced to life in prison. Incredibly, he was paroled after serving only 23 years. Police say it wasn't long before he began killing again. McDuff is now charged with murdering 2 Texas women, and he is a prime suspect in the murders of at least 4 more. It's an outrageous story, one that stirred up a 5-star uproar in the Lone Star State. McDuff was released by a 3-person parole panel, which never met him personally and never talked with survivors of his murder victims. Some people allege that McDuff actually bought his way out of prison. Brian Karam checks out the price of parole in Texas.
Kenneth McDuff awaits trial for 2 murders in Texas and is suspected of committing 4 more. Now a state grand jury and the Texas Senate are looking at how such a brutal murderer was ever released in the first place.
That release has us asking fundamental questions about crime and punishment in Texas. He had only been free for 3 days when he began his brutal pattern of slaughter. We have to ask parole officials why they saw fit to release this predator.
State Senator Ted Lyons is outraged and started investigating how the system could go so wrong. Brought the McDuff case before the Senate's Criminal Justice Committee and Governor Ann Richards to find some answers.
Texas senators want to know if McDuff bought and paid for the services of a former state official in order to get out of prison more quickly. But they're also concerned about a system that many say is broken. How could a man convicted of a triple murder, they say, one of the most heinous crimes in the history of the state, ever get out of prison in order to kill again?
After his conviction in 1966, McDuff was sent to death row and at least twice strapped to the electric chair. After the Supreme Court overturned the death penalty, McDuff and other killers walked off a death row and eventually came up for parole, as McDuff did dozens of times. In 1989, he was finally released in a system where there are no open parole board hearings. Potential parolees do not appear before the board, nor do victims. Board members mail the inmates' files to each other and cast a vote behind closed doors. It's a world of paper shuffling which allowed McDuff to shuffle out of prison. Helen Kapicka is a former parole board member who at one time voted to release McDuff.
Couldn't you look at it and say, look, this guy should have never gotten out of jail. He was a triple murderer.
No, you have a lot of murderers down there, okay, who are coming out. Whether they come out on parole or they come out on discharge.
The parole system is in need of help. It's sick.
Last week, State Senator Ted Lyon hauled Kapicka and other former members of the parole board who voted to free McDuff before this Senate committee. Kapicka is a key player in the McDuff drama. She was a parole commissioner from the late 70s to early 80s. It was during the committee hearings that Kapicka explained how she voted.
I voted in 1980 to recommend parole. I voted in 1981 and 1982 to deny parole. I left the parole board in February or March of 1983. I resigned.
Senators think there's more to the story than that. Kapicka changed her vote and denied McDuff parole in 1981 and 82 after McDuff was caught trying to bribe one of her colleagues. But after she left the parole board in 1983, she became a parole consultant. Now she could legally take money to lobby for an inmate's release. And one case she worked on was Kenneth McDuff's.
Well, they're saying that you're to blame. You're the proximate man. You're the one that used your influence to get this guy out.
Which is an absolute joke. You don't peddle influence. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely and patently absurd.
Senators are still questioning why Kapicka received $700 from McDuff's parents for her services as a consultant while working for this man, lawyer William Haburn, who was also paid $1,500 by McDuff's family.
what about those who say you're a fixer? If all else fails...
Find me a lawyer that's not a fixer.
Okay, well, let me finish. There are inmates who would say that if all else fails and you need to get out on parole, talk to Mr. Hayburn. He can help you.
I hope they do, and I hope they call. I'd love the business.
Even though Hayburn says he and Kopicka took money from McDuff's family, he says it was just to evaluate the case. Hayburn says he and Kopicka never lobbied for McDuff's release, though they were paid by McDuff's mother, Addie Lee.
Well, that was supposed to have been for some expenses that I understood.
Did she ever tell you what those expenses were?
I don't know if I don't know. I just sent her the money.
All she did was track the case, ask for the status of the case, how they voted, thanked them, and hung up the phone.
Kopicka apparently called Cora Mosley, one of 2 parole board members who voted to free McDuff in 1989. Mosley admitted she may have talked to Kopicka, but denied ever being unduly influenced by her.
For someone to suggest that I was a part of something like that, people who know me know that I would never do a thing like that.
Mosley, however, stunned the committee when she explained the process that led her to free McDuff. She says that she may not have even reviewed McDuff's file before casting her vote.
And the question that I have is, and I want to make sure that this is very clear, there is an absolute possibility that you didn't even review this file.
There's a possibility.
Because that did happen in this rush to let everybody out of jail.
Yes, but I'm human. Like I said, you know, I spent a lot of sleepless nights. You know, I talked to my husband a lot about the pressures we were under and, you know, our concerns and the concerns on everybody who was on that board.
You did have sleepless nights. Your conscience,
you have to.
Your conscience was bothering you then.
You'd have to.
Sure, I can understand that.
Are you upset that McDuff got out?
No, McDuff was primed to get out. He had been in prison 23 years. He had not been
a triple murderer.
Well, that happens every day. Check your files. Check the board records. People who have done 20 years for capital murder get out with some degree of regularity.
Senator Lyons says the McDuff case will eventually lead to a massive overhaul of the state's parole system, with the regulation or elimination of parole consultants.
Parole consultancy is a ripoff to a lot of people, and it's very, very improper, I think, for someone who's been on the Board of Pardons and Paroles then to go off there and become a paid consultant, especially on a case that they voted on.
They're cowards, and they're sitting in there today being cowards.
Lori Bible is the sister of one of McDuff's latest alleged victims. Police say McDuff abducted Colleen Reed from this Austin car wash earlier this year. And since then, Lori has become a victims' rights advocate, marching in parades and watching the Texas Senate with interest.
What did you think of the fact that in one case, someone voted to release McDuff and hadn't even looked at the file?
That's what shocked me. That was what I learned today. If she couldn't handle her job, why didn't she quit?
What did you think when Cora Mosley said, "I've had a few sleepless nights"?
I really wanted to go over and say, God, let me tell you about sleepless nights. They deserve a lot more sleepless nights. A whole lot more. And if she never sleeps another night in her life, she ought to be grateful she's still alive.
Colleen Reed's body has never been found, but Texas prosecutors say they are going to charge McDuff with her disappearance. And it looks like there's going to be some big changes in the Texas parole system. McDuff was released during a time of severe overcrowding in Texas prisons. Parole officials say they were forced to release 750 prisoners a week. That's got to change. But right now, prosecutors and victims can't go before any parole board and urge that a dangerous prisoner not be let out. Certainly, any prisoner can hire legal counsel to press his case, but a state committee is now looking into abolishing former parole commissioners from working on parole cases. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Coming up next on America's Most Wanted.
The court said we violated his rights.
Violated his rights? What the hell do they think happened to me?
June 13th, 1982. A young college student was returning home from a wedding shower. At 3 a.m., the scenic roads of upstate New York turned forbidding. Every shadow a hiding place. And not a phone for miles.
Oh, this is the car you want. Mustangs aren't dependable enough. Thanks, Dad. Hi. You scared me.
I didn't mean to. Where you headed?
Mount Morris. My car broke down.
It's a long walk. Do you need any help?
I'll be okay.
You sure?
Yeah. Thanks anyway.
You fight me, I'll kill you.
Going for a little ride now. Starting to rain. Trying to put you in the mood, huh? I'll be gentler when it counts. Take off my clothes. Nah, why ruin a good thing?
This individual took her off the street, strangled her, taped her up, terrorized her, psychologically terrorized her, let her know that she was not going to have control of anything. You know, it's sexual murder, that's all it is. She was very hurt, and she wanted to see justice.
Operator, I need the police.
State police. Okay,
so he dropped you off.
New York State Police investigator Carl Limner was assigned to the case. It would haunt him for the next 10 years.
Oh, it's my daughter, Stephanie. She's only about a year older than you.
I want to get this guy.
I know. So do we. Katie, you need to tell us everything you can remember so we can find him.
Okay.
She was a very angry young lady, one who was determined to assist the police every way she could in hopes of apprehending her assailant.
It was late. And I was just trying to get home. It was like it was all in slow motion. He had it was a yellow pickup truck, and it was all beat up. I didn't get the license.
That's okay. How old would you say he was?
Oh, 30, maybe. He had brown hair and a mustache. He smoked. He was relaxed. It was like he was on a date.
What about the house? What do you remember?
Hallways, and there were different levels.
Excuse me, Carl. Sign these. Excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault.
Are you okay?
His arms. He was so strong. And I couldn't get away.
Are you all right? We can take a break.
I'm fine.
She gave me an excellent interview. From that, I had basic information I could use to start backtracking. The other thing is to get information out by teletype and by any other means I could. We were looking for a yellow pickup truck. We had some physical description of the perpetrator.
An all-points bulletin produced quick results. A man identified as 35-year-old Gary Eugene Smith was spotted with his yellow pickup truck hanging out at a local high school, flirting with the girls.
They found him up in Avon by the school, talking to some girls. And it turns out he was arrested in '74.
For what?
Exposing himself to a couple of high school girls. We can link him to the truck, but we need a positive ID from you. Without that, we don't have enough. We're going up to his house. Anything you can remember is going to help.
Okay. So how's your daughter?
Good. She's good. She kept telling me how she needed a new car. Well, you know. You keep putting things off, you don't listen. But I bought her a new one. Right after you left the station. This is it.
I remember the gravel.
Yes?
You Mrs. Smith?
Yes?
She said she doesn't know anything.
I'm sure this is the house. It was shaped all weird.
She denied her husband had a yellow pickup.
This is the house. She's lying. I know she is.
So do I. Okay, I know where it's working.
It's him. That's the man who raped me.
We got him.
Justice was going to get done. I mean, she was very hurt, and she wanted to see justice. She wanted to see somebody not be able to do this to somebody else.
I would love to have arrested the man right then and there, but I would have known that one of the first things that would have come out in court would be an improper identification or lack of a lineup and what have you.
Tragically, because the woman had first identified Smith at the construction site and not in an official lineup, the case was dismissed.
What happened in there?
I'm sorry.
This has taken almost 2 years of my life.
We'll appeal it. We'll get it overturned.
I don't think I can go through it again.
Oh, please don't give up now.
It's not fair.
Unfortunately, that doesn't matter. The court said we violated his rights.
Violated his rights? What the hell do they think happened to me?
That young woman had invested 2 years and turned every ounce of strength and emotion towards finding justice. She felt betrayed, but the district attorney didn't give up. Exactly a year later, the rape charges against Gary Jean Smith were reinstated. The young woman again prepared to face Smith in court. On June 17, 1985, she nervously sat in a Livingston County courtroom. But Smith was 1,500 miles away, living it up in Miami. He'd abandoned his wife and his home and picked up the alias Robert P. Quate. On August 25, 1987, detectives uncovered his hiding place, but Smith had fled. If you know where Gary Jean Smith is hiding out tonight, don't hesitate. Call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-92. The young woman in our story has moved on with her life. She has 3 young children now, but says she still has nightmares. Give her a chance to find justice. Help bring Gary Smith back to face charges. Police say if he's convicted, he could face life in prison.
Still to come on America's Most Wanted. Capture number 212 slides right into the hands of police.
2 men, strangers on opposite sides of the law, brought together for one critical moment by the love they shared for the same exotic creature, a snake, a limbless reptile dating back to prehistoric times. Now, some people think they're creepy, but for a cop in Indiana and a fugitive on the run, you couldn't find a better pet. By day, Corporal Dennis Swan patrols the streets of St. Joseph's County, Indiana. He's been a police officer here for 15 years.
He's the guy that's always in the right place at the right time. He is, really.
What can I say?
Oh, yeah.
Here we are, our pets.
But at home in South Bend, Corporal Swan has his hands full with other things. 3 pythons, named Conan, the Terminator, and Sammy.
What's he doing, Jacob?
Wrapping around you?
Yeah.
Don't let him do that. Since I was about 7 or 8 years old, I've had snakes and turtles and reptiles. Basically, they're easy maintenance pets.
Corporal Swan says he never misses America's Most Wanted, but he paid special attention to our profile of Donald Burbridge. Fugitive police around the country nicknamed the Snake Man.
That really caught my eye, and then when I saw his face, It was just like, oh, there's somebody that I have something in common with, but don't have something in common with.
Police say Burbridge is so obsessed with reptiles that he charged thousands of them over the last 20 years to other people's credit cards. Then resold them to pet shops and dealers for cash, lots of it. Burbridge tried this scam in Cleveland in February 1990. Burbridge slithered away from police in several cities for 2 years. But on the morning of June 2nd, 4 days after we showed you his profile, Burbridge and his girlfriend walked into a South Bend restaurant. Corporal Swan was there, eating breakfast.
I thought, that guy looks familiar. And I thought, about a second later, I thought, that was the guy that was on Friday night on America's Most Wanted. The guy that was stealing reptiles or stealing credit card receipts and using them to order reptiles.
So Swan followed Burbridge and his friend to their car. When he pulled them over less than a mile away, Burbridge told Corporal Swan his name was Joel Gershbacher.
He started asking me, well, what's wrong, officer? What did I do wrong? I said, well, first of all, your plates are expired. Second of all, you got an Oregon ID card. You got a Georgia license. The plates belong to somebody else. They don't belong to you. And Friday night, you were on America's Most Wanted. And he said, on America's Most Wanted, me, Joe Gershbacher, was on America's Most Wanted? And I said, no, I don't remember the name that was on the program. I remember your face. I said, it was your face. He said, well, that's your program. He says, why would I be on there? He said, mainly it's murderers and rapists and kidnappers. I said, well, it must have been a slow week because you were between a murderer and a rapist.
What Corporal Swan had remembered most about our story was the fraud squad detective who encountered Burbridge and his snakes at the Cleveland airport. Burbridge had used a stolen credit card number to order several $1,000s worth of reptiles. But when the scam was uncovered by an alert Utah dealer, Cleveland detective Arvin Clark and his partner Al Kirkwood set up a sting. The snake man wasn't the only one who was stung that morning. Inside Burbridge's car, Detective Clark found a canvas bag.
I took the bag and opened it and reached in, and then I got the surprise of my life. When the snake got me, or it was a brown snake, and I looked, and he was just wrapped a little bit around my arm. And it's kind of blurry after that.
After Burbridge posted bond, he picked up his snakes and vanished. Detective Clark's experience made a lasting impression on Corporal Swan in South Bend. Taking no chances when he searched Burbridge's car, he even called in the Humane Society, who brought in a snake hook.
He had to have lived out of that car. There was no room anywhere in that car except the front seat. I mean, it was just packed. So I had to go through all those things. It took 2.5 hours. He had $2,800 in cash. He had probably $12,000 worth of books on breeding reptiles, breeding snakes in captivity, breeding rattlesnakes. He had seven or eight knives in the vehicle, high grade, like $200 type of knives. He had 4 or 5 Social Security numbers. He knew his fake Social Security number better than he knew his real Social Security number.
So my doctors advised me not to say it anymore because it just increases my blood pressure about 900 over 50.
Once in custody, Burbridge told Swan the Cleveland detective who arrested him 2 years ago was a lucky man.
Because 3 or 4 of the other bags had venomous reptiles in it, spitting cobras, Australian tiger snake, and various other poisonous snakes in the vehicle. And if he would have reached in the wrong bag, he very well could have been dead.
It really could have been dangerous. We laugh about it, and Detective Kirkwood and I, we had a lot of laughs about it, but right at the time, I will not, nor do I ever want to go through that again.
And thanks to Corporal Swan in South Bend, maybe no cop will ever have to.
250114 is Donald Burbridge.
It's like hitting a home run or making a touchdown. You just feel a great feeling of exhilaration that you could catch somebody that has been slipping through people's fingers for so long.
Is this the gentleman that is known as the snake man?
Tonight, the snake man sits in a cell in the Cuyahoga County Jail. He's silent about life on the run, so his story's still a secret. But I'd like to thank Bela Demeta from the National Zoo here in Washington for bringing our friend tonight. Bela, is this guy poisonous?
No, John, he's not. This is a Sinalong milk snake, perfectly harmless. It's bred for the pet trade quite often.
Are a lot of people trading in endangered species and poisonous species of snakes?
You know, John, unfortunately they are. A lot of people catch animals in the wild, which we don't like to promote, and they also trade in venomous animals, and that can be very dangerous.
Well, if you're considering buying a reptile or a snake and you want to find out if it's endangered or poisonous, call the Fish and Wildlife Service. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Tonight, we tried to show you positive stories of people who fought back, victims who stood up to crime. Help them bring their accused attackers to justice. New York City police say Omar Moreno is a member of a ruthless Dominican gang. He's wanted for the attempted murder of a supermarket owner. Gary Smith is wanted for the kidnapping and rape of a young college student. For nearly 10 years, his victim and police have tried to bring him to justice. Next Friday night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a crime which never ends. You're always looking over your shoulder, whether you're walking down the street or safe at home behind closed doors. You're being stalked. But will anyone believe you? What can you do to protect yourself?
I think it'll end with us dead.
Next week, victims speak out on the haunting fear of being stalked. And you'll come face to face with the people who stalk them in a special edition of America's Most Wanted. That's next Friday night. I'm John Walsh. We'll see you then.
Tomorrow, when two families begin a deadly gun battle, children get caught in the crossfire on a full hour of Cops. Then on Code 3, see actual footage of life and death emergencies. A small boy falls into a compound full of wild gorillas. A man is buried alive when a trench caves in. And rescuers become victims as they try to save two people trapped in icy floodwaters. On an all-new Code 3 tomorrow. Now stay tuned for Sightings next.